Welcome, everyone, to day 2 of the 2025 UniVersus World Championship. I'm Sam Tate. I'm joined by Barrett Bryant, and we've got an entire day, 6 rounds of Swiss, action-packed UniVersus. Barrett, I'm super excited. We saw 17 players qualify yesterday to make it to day 2, to join in on the fun, but their job is not done yet. Only 16 players will remain after today, and I know it's going to be a grueling uphill battle for all of them.
Yeah, I mean, this is, in my opinion, just the beginning of the next hurdle, right? Like, you had the first tournament, of course, with, 114 players competing yesterday. Now it is down to the wire. All of the day tours that have now qualified with their 200 points. And like you said, 17 players coming in and joining them today. 6 rounds is not a lot of time, Sam. And immediately cutting into the top 16, progressing onto Sunday. I mean, it feels like today is going to fly by, and then tomorrow the tension will bring it all slowing down and building up to that final tension and before we crown our brand new world champion.
I am super, super excited. We had an awesome year of organized play throughout 2025, and really the players have been building up to this moment, to this weekend. This is where all the hard work, all the practicing, all the control checks, every block made, every momentum spent, it all comes down to this weekend only. And the stakes, they really couldn't be higher, because whoever wins this weekend, they're going to become immortalized in cardboard and become a playable character in UniVersus, which, in my opinion, that's the greatest prize in gaming.
You can't really ask for anything better than that. But we do want to real quickly go over those 17 players, or a breakdown for us on today, where Godzilla, who had a high representation immediately into this tournament, and honestly, I won't be surprised when we look at the breakdown for what today will be like if it looks something similar to this. Because obviously, a lot of these players and these characters that did have success, the biggest shock to me was the amount of Rodans that carried over based off of their success from day one. And only one Mikasa was successful in getting those 17 players to qualify now for this day 2. But Godzilla, everywhere. It felt like even, the smaller representations here, Zeke Yeager, War Chief, had some success, right? Ryu's had some success. We're going to see a lot of these characters today as well. And I genuinely just have no clue what will end up winning this entire tournament. Of course, the people that have locked in their decks for day 2, these are the characters when we go and look at the breakdown for today. Those are the characters that will become a world champion character, right? That will be the deck that those players use to achieve that victory. And based off of this breakdown from yesterday, I can only wait to see what we're going to have today.
Yeah, there are a couple surprises out there. I was walking around, players were getting paired up, and I was pretty surprised at a few of the character selections. However, a lot of it did look similar to this breakdown. So I'm super excited. I think the people want to get into the gameplay. I think that's what we're here for. But we got to take a quick look at the prizing structure that we've got for everyone who's made it into day 2.
Yeah, so day 2 automatically gets you that new deck box that's also going to be coming in here, which, again, some players, this is their first day playing. So a lot of those players that had already qualified for day 2 are going to be picking up a lot of this swag that a lot of players picked up yesterday in the day 1 event. Those are these promos, the playmat, the nice little sling bag, and that
the
first
sling bag is so cool, by the way.
It's very nice, as well as that initial deck box. But now for the players that have qualified for day 2, no matter what, regardless if they don't progress on to the day 3, they are going to go home with this new exclusive deck box. So, I mean, based off of how many players we have in this tournament, that's basically it. That's how many of these exist. In the hands of these players. Moving on, I'm excited to see what players are going to go home with these messenger bags, because, man, I already have the one. They get the one bag, the sling bag. Now they're going to have another bag. I'm going to run out of room in my suitcase to go home here, Sam. So if somebody goes home...
You just got to check the messenger bag.
Check the messenger bag.
Check your extra bags.
Yeah, so no matter what, the top 16 players that finish off of today are going to go home with all of these. if you make it to day 3, no matter what, you go home with these chromes, you go home with the Chemetch Jamie, you go home with a new mat, and you go home with this messenger bag. And as we progress, top 8, top 4, you just level up the amount of chromes that you get, the amount of playmats you're going home with, and the chem etches, all the way up until the finalist prizing, where you take home this silver playmat theming, as well as another 4 chromes, and then a chem etch as well, all the way down to the champion. You take home even more chromes, a plaque commemorating your achievement, a new playmat, and of course, like you said, immortalizing yourself as a champion, playable card in Standard till the end of time. Obviously, Standard, you'll stay for as legal as, 2 years? Is that what it is? 3 years? But forever, you will be on a piece of cardboard. Forever.
Right. You will become a part of UniVersus lore itself. And today, we've got a breakdown of some really interesting characters. Like I said, you were going to have to expect it to be pretty similar. The main difference here is look at the jump up in Midoriya on the move.
Yeah.
Midoriya on the move was an absolute menace throughout all of 2025, a deck you always had to be prepared for, and yet day 1 it was considered an unpopular pick.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of players trying to discuss their strategy for what deck to play day 1, day 2, and I'll tell you what, Barrett, if your deck's good enough to win day 2, why was it not good enough to win day 1? I don't understand the methodology there. I don't know what the meta shift was going to be from day 1 to day 2. I tell you this, a good UniVersus deck, it can win on a Monday, it can win on a Friday.
That is true, but I think a lot of people did see the success of yesterday, or maybe even the failures of some of these other characters, because if there's anything that did drop down, it's what, like we said, Mikasa, less representation percentage-wise when it comes to this event. It's not in that top 3 conversation. You're right. Midoriya has moved up, and I think a lot of that might come down to what people saw. Only one Mikasa deck allowed those 17 players to come into this tournament today. Maybe people are getting scared. Maybe people are not feeling as confident in the character. Meanwhile, we see another high representation of Ryu. We even see Peak Finger now joining the fray. Bridget Pumat Soul. And then I think even we got the showcase on stream yesterday. Characters like Zeke Yeager, either versions here, having success yesterday.
Yeah, the Peak Finger showing up here on this breakdown is probably the biggest surprise to me. I thought this character was a flash in the pan. I thought it had its moment, right? We had the overseas regionals where Peak won, and it was great, and then Peak disappeared forever, and I don't think it ever topped again after that. So to see the true loyalists, the true Peak UniVersus enthusiasts pick up this deck for day 2, that seems to be a big difference. Again, talking about the meta shift from what's a good day 1 deck versus a day 2 deck. All the Peak players were absent day 1, so it must be people who qualified directly for day 2 that believe in this deck.
Yeah, and I won't do any spoilers, obviously, but I know a couple of those players that are playing Peak today, and they are probably going to be some of the favorites maybe going into this event, if you know who they are, of course. But no spoilers. We already have our first round match that we want to be diving into, so we're going to talk about some of these players that we didn't get to highlight yesterday. Why is that? Well, they were already qualified, of course. That's right. For round 1 going in here, we're going to be showcasing your number 1 point achiever of 2025. So for everybody who doesn't know who that is and catching up, that's right, you guessed it. It's Calvin Harrigal, Wub, who's playing Pumat Soul that we saw on that representation of the pie chart. But, of course, if you look at his achievements over the regionals this year, coming in with 545 points, first in points in the U.S., winner of Louisville, 8th place in Denver, 5th place Toronto, 3rd place Atlanta, 15th Albuquerque. There's not a single number on here that is less than 15 when it comes to
Right.
Wub has showcased and cemented himself in the year of 2025 of being the number 1 player when it comes to these regionals, and I'm excited to see what this Pumat deck can do for him.
And I'd like to point out the symbol diversity. While we did play Zeke Yeager Warchief back-to-back on the life symbol, I don't think we've seen a player breakdown that has this much symbol diversity amongst the decks, right? We had all symbol, evil symbol, chaos symbol, all very strong symbols throughout 2025. But now we're playing the air symbol. Pumat Soul on air, one of my favorite symbols one of my favorite characters, and you got to imagine this Pumat Soul deck, it's going to be looking for those massive mutant machines. It's going to be looking for those powerful Cape of No Return style assets to quick build. But across the table, we're going to have no slouch in Ryan Field, a very accomplished player, a previous regional winner, regional license exam winner back in the day. But we see a little bit of a homogenization on those symbols, right?
Yeah.
55th in Albuquerque, 34th in Toronto, 10th in Atlanta. Not quite the accolades that Calvin has. However, Ryan Field has a ton of legacy skill, and you can never count him out.
Absolutely. I mean, even one of our judges for the longest time as well, very, very well informed of the game. Of course, he came into this event with 161 points.
Yes.
So, again, having to fight his way through from day one to even qualify for today. So,
He was the singular Mikasa.
He was the one,
so
yeah.
This is the Mikasa tournament lifeline here in round one.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, had great points, made and showcased that he can play that deck. And I'm excited to see that what he's going to be doing because he's going to be one of those Mikasas represented today. Here is that Pumat Soul list, of course.
Look at these are so many of my favorite cards, Brian. I love Hunter's Ally, Vast Hybrid Chimera Kraken, the best attack in Standard for exactly one more weekend. Aerial Goblin Bolt, that card is so amazing as a block, as an attack. It does everything you want it to. I'm super excited for this one.
Yeah, and I think the big thing, too, is massive mutant machine, seeing more representation here at this event, even though we don't see equipment heist anymore. Well, obviously, Pumat Soul couldn't play that anyway, but being able to build down these assets very quickly just with the character itself, I think is going to have a lot of success here for Calvin. Obviously, strong enough for him to represent, and like a Team Hero, being able to build in these foundations as well.
So now Pumat Soul has the ability to build Team Hero 15 with Hunter's Ally, with his own ability, and that Team Hero 15 means we can build any foundation in our discard pile.
Yep.
The versatility that Pumat Soul gained from the KOF Challenger decks is insane.
Yeah, of course, on the other side, Mikasa, the last regional winning character before we headed into Worlds here in Buffalo, with Constantine taking it down. High representation yesterday, although the only one converting, as we said, from Ryan playing this deck. I can't imagine he made any changes based off of what we see here, but this is the tried and true that we've even seen yesterday. Some other characters trying to mimic this play style of a lot of attacks that leave the card pool, Mikasa giving a lot of damage to them as long as we can reveal these weapons over and over again, and taking advantage of drawing all these extra cards by using the foundations on our stage to do so.
And I want to highlight, you're talking about drawing cards, blood evaluation. When's the last time you've seen blood evaluation listed on a deck list? This card has disappeared from the metagame when it used to be one of the premier card draw abilities for a 3D. If you spend a momentum, you ready a foundation. When you ready it, you get to draw an additional card. That's something we haven't seen. What we could also see is the alternative mode, the ability to flip a momentum face down. That means that Vast Hybrid Chimera Kraken not going to be available in the momentum maybe. That means Roman Cancel Token's going to disappear when they get flipped. So I love that addition. I don't know if it's going to be super relevant in this upcoming matchup, but it does have targets with that face-up Vast Hybrid and momentum.
That's right, and I'm excited to see how it goes. And here we have our round one for day two at World Championship in Dallas, Texas. Only 16 players advancing at the end of today, and so there's the fist bump. It looks like Calvin winning the die roll, going to be going first here with Pumat. I honestly can't tell you, Sam. I have no idea who's going to win this. I want to believe in our leading point champion Calvin here, but at the same time, Mikasa is the character I think to be playing around right now in the format. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. High representation from players. Strong belief, last regional winning character, and again, the ban list basically didn't hurt this character at all after that event.
Yeah, and we already see one of the, I think, deviations. I've seen it's been included, but I don't see it every time in Mikasa deck. The fighting for control.
Yeah,
fighting for control -2 to a rival check when they attempt to play an attack. Really, really strong, able to kind of choke out the early game and maybe steal a turn, right? Mikasa really only needs one turn to pop off, and she can do it as early as turn 2 with all the card pool clearing, all the card draw available to this deck. And so that fighting for control is something we don't see in every Mikasa deck, and it tells me that Ryan has tested this deck. He has played this deck a lot, and he has figured out where he needs the small, fine-tuned adjustments to really take advantage of the fast-paced nature of Mikasa.
Yeah, and even, going second, build 5 there from the side of Ryan. Meanwhile, on Calvin's side, it was a build 4, and then we took our second turn here as Calvin to build another 3 foundations. So double build, showing a lot of the control. Don't need to really go that quickly here in the game yet. And now I think Ryan making the decision of, do I put on the pressure first, even though going second? We saw a little bit of the success yesterday of usually the person who sets the pace on the attacks has a big edge in our game, and I think in general. But the fact that Calvin choosing not to attack, regardless of what he had, means we didn't get to any sort of accessibility of what our character can do. But Ryan on the same side, showing the control, building 3 more foundations. This is, maybe not what I thought we were going to be seeing when a character like Mikasa wants to get to that enhanced step to start drawing even more cards.
Yeah, as a 5-hander, Mikasa's potency definitely comes from the enhance abilities to draw additional cards to overcome the 5-hand size deficit. And I think Calvin is absolutely stoked at the pace of this game. Being able to build 3 times, being able to hold 3 cards in hand. We've got a little bit of card draw on the stage. We're going to need a momentum to really activate that fearsome transformation and get true advantage out of it. But this is kind of where Pumat wants to be. Get to the late game, have the resources to spend. Pumat Soul has 2 really cool abilities. The first one is after an attack, or after you play an attack card, you can discard a card and you get a couple different effects. You can draw 2 cards, you can give your attack some powerful keywords, or you can make your rival commit 2 foundations, and that's going to work on block. That's going to work at the same timing that you play the attack card. So as a block, as an attack, either one works. But our first attack here is going to be from Ryan Field with the focused gravity beam. Powerful 3, stun 1, 1 low for 4, enhance, remove 1 card from your hand, remove this attack after it resolves.
Yeah. And, on top of that, immediately first enhance, we're just going to start blowing up some foundations, get the respond with the pushing the limit to draw an extra card, as well as the draw 2 that Mikasa will be giving us. So a ton of options already in Ryan's hand. And again, this is maybe why I thought we were going to maybe see an attack get played earlier. Reveals a weapon with Mikasa's other ability, give damage equal to the block modifier of it. So we're going to get 3 damage on top of this. So yes, it's very, very slow, but very punishing if you don't interact with it.
Yeah, and a lot of the newer players out there might be asking, why would I want to remove my own cards from the game? And that's because of the progressive difficulty. The way that this deck works compared to other UniVersus decks is you draw so many cards, but the only way that you can play them is if you keep removing the cards from your card pool. So whereas another deck or another attack would have had to play this focused gravity beam on a 5 instead of a 4 with that additional risk, now, because our cards always leave the card pool, we're going to play them on printed difficulty, and we're only going to commit 1 foundation instead of 2, which is perfectly fine for this Mikasa deck because we're going to sacrifice that foundation. We're going to draw 2 cards, and when Smiling Death is sacrificed, when it's destroyed and sent to the discard pile, you get to flip a rival foundation. So once again, a higher level of control than you might be used to from most of the Mikasa decks.
Yeah, and as we see here on the second focused gravity beam, we're going to go ahead and press its enhance, and the card that we remove from our hand is one of these Koenma's tasks. This is on your prediction of high impact cards, and this is exactly why the strength of Mikasa being able to play these cards and get them in the remove from game pile, regardless of your opponent playing action cards or not, which means as soon as one hits the discard pile, any extra Koenma's tasks that Ryan draws will be able to press the form ability on it, which can be absolutely devastating for your opponent and game winning on your own side, being able to search out extra cards.
Yeah, and it looks like, did we just use the once per turn on Pumat Soul to build in a mutant machine on the rival's turn?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a mutant machine coming down because of the once per turn by removing a foundation from your stage, and you're just able to straight build down an asset, so the difficulty doesn't matter at all.
We put stun under that, but I think that's the remove pile. Because we just enhanced with Team Hero 15 to build what I believe is a Shobujin's Message altar.
Yes. So that basically tells me that we're going to probably be planning on blocking this card and then giving Breaker 2 to it.
Yeah, which with the board state that Mikasa's in, it's not going to be that punishing, right?
Yeah.
Mikasa doesn't mind committing a few foundations to play cards, and when this gravity beam leaves the card pool, once again, that no progressive means that our checks are going to be pretty okay. However, we see timely counterattack as a block. When's the last time you saw a breaker 5 move, Barrett?
Printed? Probably never.
Not printed.
But yeah, so we're gonna be blocking with the timely counterattack. When you play it, you get to give it the extra breaker 2, and everything just kind of adds together, right? Breaker, there's even a -1 as well, right, for the -6.
Oh, I think we missed the timing on Shobujin's, because it looks like he moved the die for the rival check, implying that we played the breaker on timely counterattack. The problem is that breaker says after you block with this card,
Right.
and Shobujin says after you play this card. So while there might not be necessarily a specific interaction that interrupts the two,
After you play a block.
the truth is that you have to activate all of your after you play a block, which is, playing the card, and then you activate all of your on block responses. So once you have done the breaker, you've actually passed over the Shobujin's message timing, is I believe what's going on.
And then also, in the same idea, I'm
That's
pulling
the
up
same
Pumat
timing,
again.
Yeah, for Pumat
After
is
you
when
play an
the
attack card. Okay.
So once you announce the breaker, it is, technically,
Past that,
strictly
yeah.
speaking, too late to activate Pumat Soul or Shobujin's, which is rough because I'm pretty sure Calvin's plan here was to use the rival commits to foundations mode, which is my favorite mode of Pumat Soul,
and then breaker.
breaker 5.
Yeah.
Which would actually be a substantial way to try and slow down this Mikasa deck, maybe the only way.
Yeah.
Or it could be very important here if Calvin wants to discard 1 card and draw 2 cards. That might be the only way he can keep up with the amount of volume that Mikasa is going to put out, because if you have 1 card in hand versus Mikasa, that's not very strong. There's a lot of attacks that are probably about to come his way, especially if we did not get the Breaker 2 to activate this, or the Pumat Soul to help hinder the rival's turn.
Yeah, I think in the full transparency of it, it's I think for this. So one of this minus check, I think, came from an inspiring song.
Okay.
So regardless, at the end of this, it's still going to be -4, which is a lot. But I think the biggest thing, like you were saying, is if that last card in Calvin's hand isn't another attack card, we just won't be able to use Pumat at all, right?
Right, and if it's not the right block zone or potentially a massive mutant machine, we won't get to use the Shobujins at all either.
Yeah.
And it's much better to stack your breakers than it is to spread them out.
Yeah, because it can end the turn. You might
Right.
as well do a giant check hack. But I also, on the other side of that, it means weaving in a foundation becomes a lot more of a real play around, right?
That's true too, especially since I don't think these Mikasa decks, you can correct me if I'm wrong on the deck list, they used to play 4 Forcing Surrender because of Equipment Heist.
Yeah.
Now I believe Ryan was only playing 2, which we don't have in our stage. So Forcing Surrender is a great way to play around Breaker, because you play a non-attack card, a low difficulty card, and Forcing Surrender can discard a non-attack card from your card pool. But because we're no longer playing 4 copies of it to, snipe our rival's Equipment Heist, we're not building it as consistently early on in the game. So, it looks like we're only going to get the Breaker 3. We're only going to get the -1 from Inspiring Song. And this super awesome Pumat Soul combo, unfortunately, it's the highest level of play, Bear. This is the World Championship. You got to mind your P's and Q's.
There's no Q's in Pumat Soul, but there are 2 P's. All right, but it was still a half block, so we're going to end up taking that and going down to 17. So -4 to Ryan's next check to play a card. And it can end the turn. So, yeah, just weaving in this 0 diff right here. Checking a -1 on it. So we're going to have to commit 2 or 1 card. Yeah, it goes to 0. Yeah. So I have to commit at least the 1. But yeah, there's a world where if that was an extra breaker too, even weaving that 1 foundation, we would have to commit 2 more foundations, as well as we would have hopefully gotten that Pumat ability, which would have been almost every card in Ryan's stage. And then on top of that, now we're playing a dual needle lunge on a 6 because we have that extra card in our card pool.
Yeah, we could have, we could have taken out essentially half of Mikasa's stage if we had sequenced those abilities correctly. And speaking casually, right, Barrett? How many times have you played with someone and you're just like, well, I have 5 responses,
Yeah.
and just announce them all regardless of the order, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You get comfortable, in play testing, just going, well, the intention obviously is I'm going to be Pumat and all the breakers together. And unfortunately, when it comes to the World Championship, you got to make sure that you're playing not just technically correct, right, but literally correct.
That's true.
Now we've got the dual needle lunge, pay the 3 life, goes to momentum, clears the card pool, dust attack, one of my favorites from Guilty Gear. If this attack deals 5 or more damage, it doesn't count towards progressive. That's kind of like clearing the card pool. It's the same idea.
Yeah.
This one's a tension attack. So now we have a roaming cancel token, which if you block the attack, we can clear it anyways, which is one of my favorite combos to come out of Guilty Gear. But we're already seeing the price of not sequencing our breakers correctly because this attack would not have passed.
Yeah, even, again, going back to that dual needle lunge, which was on a 6 as well. But getting the block here, so we did have another attack here from Calvin. So now with that block, and then
now we can't pay the cost.
We don't have a discard a card for the Pumat ability. So instead, just another breaker 2 here for the side of Ryan, but we did use that Roman cancel on the block after it resolves to get it there. So down to 6 for Calvin, also with an aerial goblin bolt in the card pool, which does have a very powerful response that we can use there to stop an powerful blitz ability or enhance.
Yeah, so Calvin may have still stabilized here. Maybe even more important than the breaker 2 is the fact that now we can cancel and enhance, because there is a world, right, where Ryan plays something like a focused gravity beam now that Calvin has no cards in hand. And the focused gravity beam, even if you have to commit Mikasa, can clear the card pool and you can play another card after it. But Aerial Goblin Bolt now will cancel those abilities that help cards leave the card pool and prevent Ryan from committing all the way out to try and win the game.
Ryan thinking hard, yeah.
I think Ryan's trying to figure out, through the Breaker 2, can I still defeat Calvin on this turn, because this is an incredibly potent deck. Yeah, there's the focus gravity beam, check a 5, commit a foundation. We're still going to get to draw with Mikasa. We're still going to get the damage pump from Mikasa, and Calvin has no cards in hand, so he has to cancel the Mikasa enhance.
Yeah, for the damage, stopping that there. Still going to get the remove, so it's going to come down to the last attack that can be played from Ryan. But it's going to come down, I think, just whether or not there's a 3 on top of Ryan's deck or whether it's a 5. Trade size on a 6. Checks a 4. It does fail, which means...
Missed by 1.
Yeah, going down total for 2 on Calvin. And if I remember correctly, Ryan should be at 32 because we did use a dual needle lunge.
Yep.
Yeah, so there we go. We have it corrected. But
absolutely, by the skin of his teeth, Calvin Harrigal survives, and this is why the Mikasas don't like playing fighting for control. You want to be checking 5s and 6s as much as possible. You don't want those nasty order symbol checks in your deck, and it's exactly this reason, because Mikasa is so blazing fast on the aggro. As long as you can pass your checks, you can beat anyone, and now Calvin probably only has realistically this turn to make something happen.
Yeah, you definitely can't give more and more turns to Mikasa, or basically everything we just talked about on like the amount of offense that can occur from Mikasa. It can happen on turn 3, turn 4, turn 5. They can keep going. Now, granted, there are 3 focus gravity beams now gone from the entirety of the game. Right. So, like, how many more attacks does Ryan play that can, leave the card pool? We do still have things like Anchor Toss. We still have more dual needle lunges, but
we also have cards like Weapon at the Ready, which can put the dual needle lunge or the tray size on top of our deck, and Mikasa can draw it. So as long as Ryan draws 1 attack next turn, he can draw 3 attacks via the Echo on tray size. So Calvin is already essentially staring down the barrel of very, very lethal in stage from Ryan. But we've got the massive mutant machine here on the Hunter's Ally. Hunter's Ally was able to build the
Dottie.
The Dottie, which is an ally card. Now we've got the Team Hero 15, one of my favorite cards from KOF. It's going to allow Calvin to potentially get some extra damage pump when cards leave our stage, which we've got Nejire Chan of the Big 3, a huge throwback to the air symbol, one of the only ways the air symbol can reliably pump damage, and that's going to turn on that Team Hero 15 damage pump. That's going to allow Calvin to get back in this game with only, 2 or 3 attacks,
Wow.
sword play,
Wow.
absolutely what you want to see here.
I mean, very quickly, Calvin's deck is showing, yeah, I mean, I survived with the skin of his teeth, and we not only have the Dottie, which can ready an asset, but we played the pristine swordplay, which can ready an asset that hasn't been readied. But Dottie's text doesn't say that hasn't been readied this turn.
Correct.
So this one right away is going to be able to get +10/+10 from the same massive mutant machine, and then you can even sacrifice the massive mutant machine for another +7 damage. Very quickly, this is going to be lethal.
Well, you can't mutant machine twice on the same.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, we got to press the enhance. Yes, but one more attack.
But +5/+5, and then sacrifice for 4 damage. That's still pretty deadly.
Yes. We can sacrifice the Dottie. We are going to go for the block. Of course, it's not going to go through. Gets these extra views for Ryan. Taking it down. One more attack will spell it. Pristine Swordplate again on a 4/5/6, which would even ready the Dottie as well. And then 5/5.
And then you can Dottie. And then we can. Well, that's why we didn't sacrifice the Dottie. I was a little shocked that we didn't. But between Team Hero 15, between Nedgeridge and Calvin's got plenty of damage pump. And my goodness, we thought. Well, I don't know about you, but I thought Calvin absolutely punted the game away by accidentally missequencing his breaker effects, and yet by the skin of his teeth, by the cancel on Aerial Goblin Bolt, we steal one more turn and draw what has to be the best punish hand in the deck.
I don't disagree with you, man. I thought, again, even with the judge call coming in, the missequencing, not getting a breaker 6 or -6 to their check.
Let's talk about the mental, right?
Yeah.
When you make a mistake like that at the highest level, how easy is it to tilt, Barrett?
I mean, I don't think a lot of these players are going to be tilting. I do know where you're coming from, but this is the World Championship. Again, Calvin being in multiple regionals this year, doing an incredible job across all the events that he's participated in. Ryan Field's been playing this game for longer than I have, and is incredibly experienced in tournaments in general. So yes, I would say for the normal average player, 100%. But these are not your average players. These are the world best players of UniVersus here in this tournament. So Calvin showing, yeah, it happened. The mistake occurred. We barely survive because that's what the deck was still designed to do. And then, boom, shows up exactly when his deck needs to and gets that game win barely.
Absolutely. An amazing first game of the day.
Yeah.
For game one of this stream, absolutely amazing. I hope it can only get better from here, but that is going to be a tough game to beat because it was fast, it was snappy, it had drama, it had judge calls, it had a backswing, it had players living and dying by a single control check. What more can you ask for from UniVersus action?
For anything, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna hope that the players give us a great match. Of course,
I'll ask for some life gain. That's the only thing we were missing.
That's true. That's
the
true.
only mechanic I don't think we didn't see. No,
we had an edge rate chance. There was the ability for life gain.
That's true. If it got blocked,
but
there was
the abilities. The attacks were too fast with massive mutant machine really coming in clutch there for Calvin with only one of them. And when we come and we think about what the massive mutant machine decks were doing before with things like equipment heist, it was about getting multiples of them. Right. But we saw Calvin tailoring and creating this deck that it's just you can do a lot with a little. And by a little, I mean a single copy of massive mutant machine with cards that can ready it, like Pristine Swordplay and Dottie the Automaton. So,
and don't forget, we built the mutant machine during the rivals turn.
Yeah.
We did not hold the deflect. There was a moment where if we Mikasa, I was going to say maybe we should have held the deflect 3 because Mikasa's committed. We're at 2 health. If we play a 4 damage move, you can deflect and go down to 1. But that was not the case, right?
Yeah. Definitely was not the case, as is not the case of our footage. So we're coming back to us.
Someone kicked a cord.
Oh, okay.
Somebody kicked a cord, but you get our pretty faces with our long hair.
That is true.
I mean, all I can say is, again, what more can you ask for? We've had, already in one game, we've had aggressive turn 2s. We've had amazing combos, really. The Pristine Swordplay combo kill.
Yeah.
That's... Again, is there a better backswing you could have drawn than Hunter's Ally to build the Dottie and then double Pristine Swordplay to make the Mutant Machine and the Dottie work together beautifully? I mean, what character is surviving that turn?
None. I don't think anyone is.
Even Rodan, you'd have to have barrier shield, and even the breaker probably doesn't do it. I mean, I don't even think we used the second ability on Pumat, so I don't think we even had to discard a card to
No, I don't think it happened
draw
once.
extra cards. Yeah, we just had it. So absolutely amazing stuff. I love seeing Team Hero 15 get used. I feel like that card isn't talked about enough. Is that not the most insane asset in Standard besides maybe Mutant Machine?
I think it was talked a lot more when Equipment Heist was still there, because
Possibly,
if you told me Equipment Heist said build any foundation from your discard pile,
yeah.
I think people they were already on that technology, and especially characters like Hawks who were really good at enabling things like an Equipment Heist. Now with it gone, like you said, things like Hunter's Ally are one of the better avenues to build it in. Of course, Pumat, the character itself, is, hey, if I have him in my hand, I can just get one in every single turn.
Right.
But if your character just said, hey, build whatever foundation you want from your discard pile once per turn, that's incredibly powerful, because your discard pile, typically in our game, cards get checked, cards get there in the discard pile, and then you can't really access them as much as you can. But Team Hero is a green card, an asset that says turn me into essentially the best foundation you can think of.
Oh, we're gonna replay.
Yeah, the instant replay. If I had a Telestrator, we could do some
I've always
circling.
wanted one of those. Actually, I've actually always wanted a Telestrator for these. I looked up how to do it for my own.
Yeah,
but it requires. At least the method I looked up, they wanted it to use either the mouse, which has its own complications with streaming, tablet, and I was like, I'm not buying a tablet just to
something with a touchscreen.
Yeah, something with a touchscreen, exactly. So maybe that's an upgrade we make in the future.
But yeah, here it is. We've now officially got our Game 2 gameplay coming in here. Again, Ryan being able to go first, and there is that fighting for control to be the first foundation for Ryan. Forcing surrender, which I think will, like you said, be a lot more impactful for what Ryan now knows is part of the defensive tactics of Calvin. Lots of breaker, making all these cards harder to play. Now the forcing surrender means that if Ryan wants to do that sort of weaving of foundations, now we might
Which he had to do twice.
Yes, he did it twice. Now it actually means that you might not fail that turn, and Calvin will die.
Right, yeah. And we see the Inspiring Song come out first. We've got Cardboard Crusaders.
Yeah.
One of our champ cards. So excited for champ cards to be back in the fold at the World Championship. It just feels kind of right. It's a little UVS tradition that the champ cards do really well at major tournaments. They're designed by people who are pretty good at the game, so it makes sense. And Cardboard Crusader is absolutely one of my favorites because it seals the first attack played and says it can't leave the card pool.
Correct.
Which is absolutely what you want to be doing against this Mikasa deck. So we'll see if Calvin feels threatened by this dual needle lunge, because this is exactly the kind of thing I think Cardboard Crusaders is kind of built to counter, but Calvin's going to let it go through.
Yeah, checking a 3 on it, I'm sure Calvin feels a little bit better. Also, a Fortitude of the Armored Titan.
Oh, my goodness.
Also
this card got a lot of talk when it was first revealed, but I don't think I've ever seen it in competitive play a single time.
Yeah, I think that actually might be true. I actually think
I'm sure people played it. I just haven't seen it. This one says all your rivals' attacks get +1 difficulty for the rest of the turn. So like a blanket breaker effect is incredibly strong, but being a 5 difficulty action that you can't really do anything with on offense is definitely something that people have struggled to play around. And that makes sense now why we didn't have to use our Cardboard Crusaders, is we felt pretty confident in the rest of our defense. So gonna force a build out here from Ryan, which can't be what he wanted out of this turn.
No, only the 1 attack. Of course, it did connect for 8 damage, so that is a lot to go for.
However, we did get a really solid 4 build after that in our 5-hander while still holding 3 cards, and of course we can draw way more. So maybe Ryan didn't have that many attacks in the first place.
Yeah, and getting those kind of defensive tools out like the Fortitude this early on is pretty nice. I believe this is only in Calvin's sideboard as well, so he did bring them in. I think also the Cardboard Crusaders is also in the sideboard. So Calvin coming back here now for his turn 2. Going to try and figure out if we want to accelerate the stage, but instead Vast Hybrid Chimera Kraken coming out, checking a Mondo. So there, and we get to commit and freeze any one of these foundations. Do you think you might end up picking the Weapon at the Ready?
Weapon at the Ready is the first one I thought about. However, forcing surrender might be the correct call. we've got both of our 2 forcing surrenders in play already. So complete reversal, as I was talking about, you're not building it as consistently early. Well, Ryan Field found them and built them turn 1 and turn 2. So weapon at the ready is definitely the level 1, the surface level call, because weapon at the ready says I will draw an attack.
Yep.
Or potentially I will check a 5 when I need to, depending on if he has, tech foundations to stack. So that one is definitely the overt call, but forcing surrender might actually be the key for Ryan to play around all the breaker effects.
Yeah, we even saw a weapon clash enhance come through just to get an extra foundation for Ryan defensively. That, again,
very popular. Mikasa essentially flip to draw 2, if you want to think of it that way, which I don't think any other card can do unless you're at 0 cards in hand.
Yeah. I also think that always cool is going to be a big deal for Ryan. Less so on building more foundations, but more so for, we saw Calvin basically just win the game with 3 attacks because it was about making them massive because of the mutant machine. And now things like always cool at least will slow that down. But Masho's coming in here for the build after the Vast Hybrid did get blocked. So another Team Hero 15, not checking the best on these. Checks another 3 on this Shobujins coming down. Really valuing them on a 4, checks. So we're going to build a couple of these foundations and then another asset. Only 3 ready resources, though, at least foundation-wise for Calvin. As he passes back, I think with only, 2 cards in hand?
Yeah, but with Pumat Soul, we might have the ability to replenish those 2 after we block with an attack card. I want to talk a bit about Clasp. Was it Clasp membership?
Yeah.
I think it's a weird 2 words I don't think I've ever said together outside of this card game. When you partial block an attack, you can flip it to gain 2 health. So this deck has a weird amount of life gain on the air symbol here between Nejire Chan saying you can destroy a foundation, block, and gain a life, and Class membership which says you can gain 2 when you partial. And that might change the math just enough in Calvin's favor to survive this turn 3 aggression from Ryan here. Ryan opening up with the dual needle lunge. This time, we are going to get the Cardboard Crusaders out of him. That's going to seal the attack. Say it can't leave the card pool for any reason, and that's going to shut down everything that's good about dual needle lunge.
Yeah, I was preemptively losing the 3 over here for Ryan, and I gave it back to him because you're right. Why would you even press the enhance when now that card obviously is sealed and then also can't actually leave anyway? Mm-hmm. So
and now we've got Inspiring Song. I have to imagine we're going to do the -1 mode again. Yep, rival check -1. And we got the Shobujin's Prime. So I expect to see an attack block. It gets Breaker 2. Correctly sequenced this time. Pumat Soul correctly sequenced this time. Then activate the breakers. And Ryan might be left with just, oh, wait, no, we just took it. Never mind.
Take it to the face, taking the 5.
And yet, the build out from Ryan says it was absolutely the correct call.
Yeah, we just didn't draw more attacks. I mean, that seems to be now like this 2 turns in a row now where that has occurred. The attack still does connect, so it does go to the momentum. Face down
because it was sealed. Pretty interesting, yep.
And then the first attack, or second attack now for Calvin here, going with the Hunter's Ally. We saw that be the beginning of how he won Game 1, but we don't have a massive Mutant Machine yet in our stage, so as it's played, we're going to discard that 1 card for the Pumat Soul effect.
What ally card are we going to get? It's Dottie, but Dottie doesn't have a friend.
No friends yet.
Dottie by itself, not super impressive. Pumat Soul still has the ability to build in an asset from hand. And we haven't used the once per turn response after you play the attack card either. So
I thought we did. I just don't know what we did.
Maybe we did mark it. Because they've been pretty good about marking the once per turn with the little judge cards.
I think for me, I thought I saw him discard a card. So I just don't know what mode we picked. I would assume it's just we drew cards because Ryan didn't commit anything. And
yeah, there wouldn't be a reason to give EX and he didn't commit. Can we count the cards in hand if he still has 6?
Shocking entrance coming through.
Well, here's a great way to get that asset into your hand where you need it. This is a card that flew under the radar until basically the end of its lifespan here in 2025. Pumat Soul giving it a new lease on life. Some Mimic players utilize this card. I was never a huge fan of it in Mimic. How did you feel?
How did I forget what?
How did you feel about Shocking Entrance? Did you ever play it?
I didn't like it in Mimic List.
Yeah, I didn't like it
I
either.
wasn't a big fan. It's even like,
I don't need the assets in my hand. I need them in my stage.
Exactly.
Right?
And so like I was a bigger fan of like the dangerous gambits that people were playing later on in Mimic's lifespan as well.
Like you know,
we say that like he's not legal, but he is legal.
And he did still do well after the errata, but you know, adding the asset to my hand to build later, I'm trying to win the game now.
But there it is, just like you said, discards a card from our hand, picks up any asset from our discard pile. We grab the massive mute machine,
and
because
now Dottie's got a partner in crime.
Yeah, which means even this, seemingly non-lethal 2 low for 5 can very quickly become a 7th low for 11 now, because we already gave it another damage. And Dottie can ready that massive mute machine if another attack wants to be played here from the side of Calvin. But the difference, I think, so far, at least in this game, now that we're pressing this, is these attacks are blockable because Ryan has enough foundations ready in his stage, and a 0 low block is going to help with that as well. On a 7, checks a 5, just commits 2 foundations. We'll lose the 1 because of the ability on the syndicate target, but full block even with a massive mute machine in hands.
Yeah, Shocking Entrance, one of the reasons not the biggest fan of it is if it's not the only card in your card pool, it's very slow.
Yeah.
2 low for 5, even with the 5 speed on it, made it so that Mikasa could block this with relative ease, committing very few cards. +1 to our check, though. We're going to drop the pristine swordplay. We're going to check a 6 anyways. Little bit of waste of the +1, but it's still proper play, right, to get those check bonuses out when you know that you're going to be playing a difficulty over 5. And now, this is why we didn't ready with Dottie earlier, because the pristine swordplay has to ready the mutant machine first. Then Dottie can commit to ready the mutant machine. And if we have a 4th attack, we're going to be able to, and I think you're right, I think we did do the discard and draw 2 because we're not doing it here yet. And I think we have the correct number of cards that we drew earlier. But Pristine Swordplay going to ready the Mutant Machine, going to potentially get +16 damage here. We haven't seen the Mutant Machine sacrifice yet.
Yeah.
So depending on whether or not there's another attack, here comes the Dottie, so there should be another attack. And if it's another Pristine Swordplay, that one can swing for 16 damage. Sorry, not +16, but 16 total.
Yeah, which again is showing how we can get to this, this higher life total that Mikasa does have, of course. But Ryan, again, having played better defense this game, being able to block these moves. So even this one, this is a 9 mid.
Still blockable with the stage that we have, though, correct?
Yeah, so on a 10 minimum, depending on what this block is. Bonus task.
On a 12?
Yeah. Needs a 5. There it is.
Commit everything, though.
Yeah, including the character.
Which, I mean, going into it, you had to know that was the math, right?
Yep.
You had to know that was check a 5, commit everything was the gambit you were going for.
Taking a look in the discard pile before we make the decision. I can only imagine, depending on how many. Hey, there it is.
A little late, but yeah.
If we see however many pristine sword plays we see in the discard pile, makes whether or not we need to block this one or not. But I mean, you have the correct block math.
I think the biggest question here is, do we need Always Cool for the next attack?
That's fair.
And realistically, we could have sacrificed Always Cool on this attack to lock it at 4 damage, and I don't think we need to block it. However, losing the 1 resource means we're not blocking anything with Massive Mute Machine stats on it ever again. So a very difficult decision here for Ryan. Potentially, Barrett, in retrospect, hindsight's 2020, should we have used Forcing Surrender? Give us -1 difficulty to our block. We could commit everything but Always Cool. And then we would have the Always Cool response ready to go for the next attack, and there is no next attack.
Yeah, so, I think Ryan really kind of going to beat himself up about that decision later on if it really ends up being the decider. But builds a couple more passes, and Ryan is going to have another opportunity with a pretty good stage size to finish off this 15 life total that Calvin has. We just review another Coenmas?
Yeah, we blocked with one, then we reviewed one. Which, if we have a weapon at the ready in our stage, one of the cool ways you can activate Coenmas is remove 3 from discard for cost on weapon at the ready. And we saw a Focus Gravity Beam, you could remove 1 from hand. So there's a lot of sneaky ways to activate the form on Coenma's task, which, for all intents and purposes, is usually a game-winning form, especially for decks like this. I've played quite a few games with Coenma's Task in the past where I could search for as many attacks as I want, but it didn't matter because I didn't have the board state necessary to play them all. Mikasa, this deck's built to play them all.
Yes, exactly. Finds so many cards in hand, it has ways of getting rid of and removing them from hand or getting in the discard pile, and that's exactly where you want them to be because the extra ones that you draw means you can plus the form. But Anchor Toss is going to be the first attack here on the side of Ryan, and then here is another Fortitude of the Armored Titan to give +1 difficulty to all of Ryan's moves, and this one loses its keywords. Not that it needs ranged or weapon, I suppose.
Yeah. The keyword's not doing a lot here, but the +1 difficulty to everything hopefully will.
+3 damage on these, which is why I think a lot of the players have been leaning towards this Anchor Toss in this kind of deck because they're never for 2 typically,
Right.
And they still leave the card pool as long as there's not any sort of interaction from the opponent, which is exactly again the style of what this deck is trying to do. But we're just going to take the 5 here for Calvin, going down to 10.
And I think one of the biggest difference makers on this turn is potentially the Dark Ward.
Yeah.
Calvin has utilized that breaker defense primarily to slow down the opponent, but Dark Ward cancels breaker because it's played from the card pool.
Yeah, so this Anchor Toss was on a 5. We checked a 3, so that's why we had to commit the extra 2 foundations. And then we keep showing off this dual needle lunge that we know is coming. Another Anchor Toss for 5 damage. I can't imagine this is one you block, but you know that a dual needle lunge will be coming your way, so you have to have a high block for that if you take this one. Instead, we're just going to go for the full block with this Hunter's Ally in Calvin's hand. Showing off that top cut Hunter's Ally all the way back from Denver of this past year. And then there is the Pumat Soul effect, discarding the card from hand to then draw 2. Dark Ward did get used there. Did we have a Shobujins?
We did, yeah. We had the Shobujins, yeah.
Cancels that breaker, like you said. And then here is a Gravity Beam on a 5 as well. Checks a 3. Very quickly. I mean, this one, again, I always forget, but it has powerful 3 on it. And you know, later on in the game, it matters because you have the momentum. So it's already at 7.
Yep, going to remove the card from hand, so it'll leave the card pool after it resolves. Stun 1 coming down. Powerful for +6 damage. That's going to make this a must-block scenario. And Calvin doesn't have it. So we're going to get a game 3 off the back of a 1 low for 13.
Wow.
I mean, sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the grease. You know, you had like you said, you got the powerful late in the game. You know, got to spend the resource, and it worked out. I mean, realistically, Ryan had another Anchor Toss in hand, you know, and that turn was probably far from being over. But the powerful really locked it up.
Well, Pumat's going to go first in this game 3. What do we think? What do we think is going to be the result?
I think I think this matchup is almost completely determined by how Mikasa's turn 2 goes. Because in game 1, Mikasa didn't get out of the starting blocks very quickly. And even with Calvin, you know, sort of having that mishap with the sequencing, the amount of effects stacked together were still enough to help him buy that turn. Even though we didn't get to do the one big breaker that we wanted, having the 2 breakers spread out while not as potent was still enough. But in this game, Ryan got on top of him a little bit earlier. Still wasn't like the insane turn 2. Still got attack sealed. Still went to turn 4. Still late game for Mikasa. But it wasn't the pressureless gameplay that we saw in game 1. So that little bit of pressure forcing Calvin to still use resources early, I think kind of, you know, set off the kilter a little bit. Like the turn that Calvin had, the pristine sword play.
Yep.
If it was double sword play instead of shocking entrance, we probably still can't win because we didn't have the mutant machine already built like we did game 1. But we needed one more attack to even threaten lethal in that game. So the more time that Calvin has to get set up, the more time he can sculpt without getting pressured, the better. One of the biggest things about Pumat Sol is to use his abilities defensively, you have to block with attacks.
Yep.
If you're blocking with attacks, you're not playing them on your own turn.
Yeah, and even this build 4 here from Calvin are, not necessarily like the best enablers of like what this deck is trying to do. They're great defensive pieces, right? Speed, and then we have the gaining of the lights that we didn't really.
Symbol is trying. Okay,
I'm not.
This is what air symbol players have been dealing with for years, Barrett.
That's
Bryant.
true. Meanwhile, on the other side of the board, immediately from the first build turn, we have a board which we already know is great for Ryan in this matchup. Weapon Clash for extra foundations, extra card draw on the pushing the limits, and then there's that weapon at the ready, which now means every single turn from here on out, Calvin has to be worried about an attack being stacked on top of Ryan's deck, which is just extra gas in the tank.
Yeah, this is a pretty powerful one early, though. Got the Hunter's Ally, going to discard an ally card to draw 2 cards. I would assume that we're immediately going to build the Team Hero 15, if only because all of the foundation options that are allies can also be built by Team Hero 15, and you can choose to do that at your leisure later on if we want. So if we need that Shobugens defensively, Team Hero 15 can build it later.
Yep.
But if we get an ally card that we would rather have offensively later in this turn potentially, or on a future turn, we can save it for that. So the versatility, again, that Team Hero 15 has added to characters like Pumat Sol is pretty insane.
Yep, there's that weapon at the ready already happening. As we remove those 3 cards, there's now a dual needle lunge on top of the deck. And Ryan said, I'm not even going to blow up my stage after we use that weapon class because I just know you're not going to kill me here as we just take the 5. So it's just going to be an extra card in hand for the next turn.
And that's such a heads-up play by Ryan because he's utilizing the resource on the rival's turn, right? He's now going to have weapon at the ready on his own turn as well to potentially get another attack. And dual needle lunge can create this sort of soft loop with weapon at the ready. We don't have a way to ready weapon at the ready to do it over and over, but dual needle lunge can spend itself from momentum with EX2, right? So you play the second copy, you spend the first one, and then you stack it back on top, draw it with Mikasa. Luckily, though, Calvin built Macho Concealment, which is probably, if I had to guess, going to be aimed at, well, it's the only enhance in the stage, actually, that Macho can cancel. So that's a huge build from Calvin. Even though Ryan did play that really well, he's probably not going to get to activate his full sequence of effects because Macho Concealment can cancel any enhance ability played on a foundation.
Ryan getting a clarification, just asking about Pumat. And then I can only imagine probably that dual needle lunge being the first attack we play. Yep, there it is on a 5. Checks the Judge promo fashion icon.
Yes, I think it's the Judge promo. Yeah, one of the rarest of all the promos from MHA era, the Chibi series. That I don't think I've ever seen that in person actually either.
I have one.
Yeah.
At home, but yeah.
The only Judge promo I have, I think, is the Selkie. Was that a Judge promo? Or am I tripping?
I don't know.
I think there was 2 versions of the Selkie. I remember people wanted like $400 for it at one point, just like the Midnight.
Jeez.
And it did not work out. People were selling Midnights for $400 because it was a mechanically unique promo. And then when Selkie dropped, people wanted the same amount, and they were like, that's not a beautiful anime woman.
Does get the block in, though, for Calvin. Full block on that dual needle lunge, but here's dual needle lunge number 2. Checks a 3. And very quickly, we are cutting our own life away, going down to 24 for Ryan. And like you said, still staring across that monster's concealment, so we can't just start pressing the buttons on this weapon at the ready. Team Hero coming in defensive.
Yeah, we've seen it used defensively pretty much every time so far, and it's been to build in this powerful Shobugen's Breaker 2 effect. But we can get any foundation we want. We've seen it for Inspiring Song, too, for -1 to a check, which, whether or not that was what deterred Ryan Field from attacking more, or if he just didn't draw more attacks, it certainly worked out in Calvin's favor for that for a moment. So I believe this is Fight for Truth.
Yeah, the Pearl version of it.
Yeah, Fight for Truth is interesting. I don't think it's going to do anything in the immediacy. However, at the end of this turn, we're going to be able to mill 3 cards, add 1 to our hand. That's going to increase the consistency of what is effectively a Pumat Soul combo deck. So Calvin hedging his bet the same way he did with the massive Mutant Machine in game 1, building resources to activate for a later aggressive turn.
Yep. And then we actually saw and then we see the Fortitude coming in as well.
On a 6, though, checks a 3. I mean, we probably weren't doing a whole lot of blocking after this anyhow. Trying to prey on the small stage of Ryan Field. 3 resources ready, but that's probably enough for the average Mikasa deck. As long as we keep drawing 4 diffs and we keep checking 5s, and they keep leaving the card pool, that Fortitude of the Armored Titan is not going to matter much at all.
And this one's scary, right? Because, again, it has a powerful 3, and Calvin has basically said, I guess I'm not blocking again with 2 cards in our card pool and only 1 ready foundation.
I mean, if there was an attack to block, it's the 1 speed move.
1 low, yeah.
But now we see the stun happening, and Masho Concealment is the only foundation ready. Another stun 1 move means that Ryan can use Weapon at the Ready to stack a Dual Needle Lunge, but Dual Needle Lunge is a 5 diff, and it's 6 now.
We did have a low block. Checks a 4, which is just enough to commit that last foundation to get the full block on it, but we didn't even press the powerful on it from Ryan, which means another one could just show, there's another copy. 4-5, checks a 3, has to commit 2 for it.
Oh, Weapon at the Reagan committed, so we're not looking for the Dual Needle Lunge play. Is Lethal Rending sacrifice face downs only, or can you sacrifice any foundation? Because Lethal Rending is the Constantine +4 block mod sauce, but we saw the Blitz actually win the regional for him because he sacrificed 3 ready foundations to pump the damage up to 9. And so
there's
you
the powerful.
You can sacrifice all 3 of these face-ups. Lethal Rending potentially representing 12 damage here. We see a grip of orange from Ryan Field. I'm not liking Calvin's chances here, Barrett.
No, this is already for 14 damage. We'd have to have another low block, but we're completely tapped out and 3 cards in the card pool. So there it is, going down to 5. Any attack can basically get the job done. It doesn't even have to be with the Blitz ability off the Lethal Rending. But there it is on a 4-5.
Even if we check the 3 here, there's the fist bump, effectively the handshake. And Ryan Field is going to take down round 1 of day 2 in the UniVersus World Championship.
Defeating the first place point winner. And so there it is. Mikasa already starting strong, and if you ask me, a stronger start than yesterday.
Right,
based off of the final results. But Ryan coming in off of the heat. We talked about it yesterday. Winning and making your way from day 1 of the tournament is a real buff for these kind of events because you already have warmed up, and Ryan has already played 7 rounds with this deck.
Yeah, but let's talk about the match itself. Game 1, a barn burner. What was it? I think it was only 3 turns total. Well, no, because they built a bunch.
Yeah.
But it was still a barn burner, even though it started off kind of slow, right? It was build, and then everything kind of culminated at once, and it was all focused around that. Again, it's a misplay, but it worked out for Calvin in the end. But the misplay around the breakers is really the story of that game 1, and yet the thing that mattered the most is just that Calvin had enough. If he didn't have that Goblin Bolt, he doesn't survive that turn.
Correct. And then game 2, a little bit more one-sided, I would say. A lot of
Definitely
aggression.
a Mikasa game.
Yeah, Mikasa game. A lot of regression coming from Ryan, just not really able to get the full kind of defense. I think Ryan finding those key pieces, though, that would help. We saw the double forcing surrender, having already a game plan, but things like Dark Ward really going a long way for that deck and the breaker sort of defense that Calvin was going for, all the way then down to that game 3 that we just witnessed, which, again, it's just Calvin never really being able to go and do that sort of offensive get pressure, and the same result, and then that being the reverse sweep coming from Ryan there, getting the last 2 wins on those last 2 games.
Yeah, game 3 really showing, I think, the reason to play Mikasa right now in this format is just the amount of overwhelming number of attacks that came through. And granted, Calvin, things might have been different if he checked a little better on the Fortitude of the Armored Titan, but I really don't think it would have mattered. We saw how many cards how many attacks Ryan Fields still had left.
Yep.
We saw him cash out in a huge way with the momentum. The lethal rending, was just the icing on top.
Absolutely. But congratulations to Ryan. But it's still obviously anyone's tournament. They have 5 more rounds to get through. Having a loss right off the bat isn't that big of a deal if you just continue to play well. And Ryan, of course, probably feeling really good going into this round 1 win. But we've got more to go through. We've got Godzilla Reign of Kaiju to remember, having super pre-releases happening all weekend here. Of course, with the actual pre-release happening next Friday on the 6th of March and the actual official release on the 13th of March as well. I think they want us to talk about our picks again. Now, we did pull a Focus Prism Beam and a Divine Defender yesterday, but I'm still looking for a Mechanical Monster. Meanwhile, I don't think we opened any of your picks.
No, I picked some high rarity stuff. I got all ultra rares and secret rares, but I mean, look at how beautiful Sacred Guardian is, man. That's a wonderful card.
Mothra's just a great-looking character. But we're going to go ahead and open another one of these packs, and we have new camera technology for you all. We've got a
real pack opening angle.
The actual... Oh, where am I? Okay.
To your left, yeah.
Yes, okay. So let me do the 3 for everybody. Yeah. Yes, we got a real pack opening. So, of course, I will do my absolute best, as I am also not very good at these. But we've got our Combined Perfect Form, Laser Cannon, Valiant Hero. These cards are just absolutely beautiful as well, just really showcasing a lot of the comic book art style from Godzilla products across the years and the ages. Tangled Grass, it's just, I don't know, man. Ooh, Low Guard.
Very thematic.
Repelling Fire.
Oh, another 4-check attack. There's more than one.
Oh, there we go. We got Hedora. I think this is actually the first Hedora we've opened all weekend. And then let's find out what our higher rarity card is.
Whoa.
Silk Rain, another one. Actually, I actually really like this card. Another Mothra piece, kind of really helping that character out. It says if it deals damage, you can just build it face down committed. So it's just like another one of those cards that we saw success on, like what Mikasa does. Cards that leave the card pool.
And it's a card that creates its own dilemma, because if it deals damage, you get a benefit. If it's blocked, you get a benefit.
Absolutely.
So this is honestly probably a limited bomb.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's going to be it for that pack opening. We've got more that we're going to be doing, of course, throughout the day. But that is going to wrap up round 1 for us here, Sam. Don't go anywhere, as we have more exciting action happening for day 2 at Worlds here in Dallas, Texas. We'll be back with round 2.